Hi, it's Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. Today I'm here for Mercy Tiara Kits, and I'm going to be creating a 12 by 12 layout featuring the August 2024 release called Sweet Summer. This kit combines products from Carta Bella, Simple Stories, Freckled Fawn, and more. The design I'm going to be sharing is basically a bit of a messy twist on a classic half and half design. So here's my narrowed down selection of material. I have bits and pieces from the main kit and the embellishment add-on. And that cream puff basil cardstock was in the cardstock add-on. If you want a closer look at all of this, check out my unboxing video. I will put a link to it below, along with links to the Mercy Tiara Kits website, Instagram, and Facebook group. So let's get started. You're going to see on my desk in advance, I prepared a frame style foundation page, and there are two photos. That's me at a farm stand buying my vegetables for the week. You can see my frame style foundation is a bit different than my typical ones. It's extremely narrow, but I really love how that green and white check just peeks out from the edge. So I will put measurements on the screen. There is a tutorial on my channel how to make a frame style foundation and gut the back of it, so that will be listed and linked below. I'm showing you the other paper. So that green and white check, I gutted it from behind the foundation page. All of these papers were in the main kit, and most of them are from Carta Bella's Roll With It collection. That red one is in the main kit as well, but it's from a different Carta Bella collection. It's from Sunflower Summer. I showed you a 12 by 12 sticker sheet that was in the main kit, again from the Carta Bella Roll With It. Now you can see I'm just kind of going through quickly my embellishment tray. So these are narrowed down selections from the main kit and the embellishment add-on. I'm going to talk more about all of these pieces later on in the process when I actually embellish my page. What I want to do right now is start cutting up some paper to create kind of a layered photo mat on top of my foundation page. And basically, like I mentioned in the intro, I'm going to be making a half and half design, but kind of shrinking it down on a smaller canvas. So I'm starting by cutting two chunks of paper in this green and white gingham along with this wood grain paper. These are going to be roughly the same size when I'm cutting them right now. However, I do rip this wood grain one, so the measurements that eventually I put on the screen will be for the pieces that are already trimmed down. So you can see for this wood grain one, I'm going to tear it, and I have a Creative Memories tearing tool. And my plan here is to kind of stagger them. Now, what I'm going to do first is add some ink. I did that off camera, and I also cut myself out two photo mats in that red paper. I didn't adhere them quite yet because I'm not quite sure if I'm going to use them at this point. I am going to be adding a lot of patterns, a lot of texture, a lot of color. So I like to go forth with that gradually because sometimes it can get pretty overwhelming for me quickly. So I'm giving you an idea how I plan to go ahead. Basically, I have these two chunks of paper that are kind of staggered. That establishes more or less my half and half design. And my plan is to fill up each one of these columns. And I'm going to stagger the photos, one at the top left, the other at the bottom right. What I want to do right now is start adding layers. So I have two pattern papers here. So with this green scrap of paper, what I want to do is cut myself out a border edge. So I have the Creative Memories Border Maker system. I have the notebook cartridge. If you don't have this, you could either tear the paper, you could use a different border punch, or you could just leave it straight. So I'm going to place this on my page, and I'm also going to trim down that floral paper as well. I'm just kind of putting everything on the page and deciding as I go along. So at this point, I have this chunk of floral paper. I want to place it underneath the photo over there on the left. That's going to be my focal point photo, so it's going to have more embellishing. Now at this point, I'm trying to determine how long I want these strips of paper. Again, I am putting measurements on the screen for what I'm doing, but you can see from what I'm doing, I'm trimming, going back, trimming a bit more. So I am deciding as I go along. So doing this approach, you don't really need my measurements because it's a great design to use if you have scraps. But anyway, I'm putting my measurements there for convenience. So you can see I trimmed down those 2 layers that I added underneath the photo on the left. Now I have an off-white paper. This was in the main kit as well. The flip side is like a red check paper. And what I did was I punched a notebook border along the edge. And now I'm going to trim myself just a narrow strip. And I'm going to incorporate that in amongst all of these layers here. So you can see me kind of putting it behind that torn piece of wood grain paper. So suddenly those 2 big pieces of paper that I started with that established my half and half design are kind of getting hidden amongst all these layers, but the base layer is definitely a half and half design. So now I have 3 more papers. I've cut them up. 2 of them have notebook borders and I added ink to them. By the way, the ink I've been using is Morning Mist by VersaFine Claire. It's kind of a gray ink. So now I'm placing all my layers. You can see the 3 main ones there, including that area where I plan to do my journaling. Then underneath my focal point photo, I have 2 more strips of paper. I am going to put measurements on the screen for the final pieces. And why I'm saying that is those 2 notebook border pieces get trimmed at the very end, just a little bit, but the measurements I'm going to put on the screen are for the final measurements. So now what I'm going to do is adhere these pieces together. And really what I'm keeping in mind, because I want to create a messy look, is I am staggering all the papers. So you can see I'm putting them all at different levels. Right off the bat, I staggered the wood grain and the green check paper. But take note where I place all of the other papers. None of them equal at the same height at the top. They are all staggered. So there I go, continuing to adhere. There's another thing I kept in mind as well. For the wood grain paper and that green check cardstock, I measured them so that they would be equal distance to the right and to the left edges of the pages. On top of that, on top of the green check and wood grain, other elements kind of bleed out the side, but the 2 big chunks have equal distance to each side, the right and left side. You can see I'm showing you all of my embellishments here, and my photos, by the way, are not adhered at this point. So my title, I've selected it. I've done it in 2 different fonts. The red alphas are from Simple Stories. They were in the main kit. And those titles, those foam titles, are from Simple Stories, from some vintage collection. They were in the embellishment add-on. So my title is A Happy Day. I'm also showing you that I have 2 ephemera packs, or 2 kind of narrowed down selections from those 2 ephemera packs. So those are on my tray. One of them was in the main kit. One of them was in the embellishment add-on. I also have these chipboard, I don't know what they're called, quotations or something. They are from Tim Holtz. They were in the main, no, I'm sorry, they were in the embellishment add-on. Off camera, I did my journaling on the computer and printed it on vellum. I have puffy stickers. Those are both from Freckled Fawn, those hearts and stars and dots. And I also kept a handful of these punched out scraps from my notebook border. I thought they may be interesting. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to use them at this point, but I did keep them. And I do have this 12 by 12 sticker sheet that was in the main kit, and that's from Carta Bella's Roll With It collection. So basically what I plan to do here is, even though everything is covered up, I am going to fill up those columns. And what I just showed you a moment ago and forgot to mention is I do have a little handful of fussy cut flowers from one of the pattern papers. Anyway, like I mentioned, I'm basically going to be filling in these columns above and below the photo. So the one in the top right, that's going to be where my journaling is going to go. So you can see I have my journaling on vellum. I tore the right edge and I'm basically tucking it in behind that wood grain paper, and it's going to go underneath that photo that's just beneath it. What I plan to do in the kitty corner in the bottom left, that's going to be taken up with my title. So I want a dynamic title. It's going to be a happy day. I'm just playing around a bit with placement. I'm not adhering right now, but I know it's going to go there. And what I'm going to do right now is just start building embellishment clusters. So as far as I'm concerned, I kind of have one around the title. Now I'm building one over on the right-hand side. I start with two ephemera pieces. Both of those are actually from the Carta Bella Sunflower Summer Collection. Anyway, they don't both stay there, but I'm just additioning different pieces. Now I'm going into the sticker sheet. I pull off a few pieces as well. I put them on wax paper so I can play around with placement. There was a white tag there, but the white on top of that cream paper was bothering me, so I replaced it with one of those scraps of paper from that notebook, and I'm quite happy I saved it actually. On top of it, I have that field notes. It's like that chipboard word from Tim Holtz, and I have some flowers tucked in there. So I'm kind of happy with that cluster right now. I've got the title cluster going on, and I want to add a third one. So I'm additioning pieces just above the journaling, but in the end I have this sticker. It says life is better with baking or something, but this has nothing to do with baking. So what I ended up doing was tucking half of it underneath my photo, so it just says life, and I really like that. So I am going to keep it above the photo as opposed to above the journaling like I originally thought. And now what I'm doing is starting to adhere. Now I do come back and add some finishing touches, but at this point the photos are loose. All of my embellishing is loose, including my title. So I'm starting on the right. You saw that I adhered those flower stickers down. Now I'm adhering the photo on top of it. And then what I will do is come in with that little tag and that little piece of paper, that little scrap of that notebook piece, and I'm happy with that. When I adhere that chipboard piece that says field notes, which I really like, I end up peeling off some of the chipboard. I like my pages fairly flat just because I have so many albums. So the chipboard peels off very nicely. It's still chipboard, it's just a little bit thinner than what it originally was. So I finished that cluster in the bottom right, and now I'm adhering that little piece, that little life word just above the photo. I adhered the photo as well. And now I'm working on the title. So I have the word happy overlapping my photo. I'm able to nestle the word on top of it. Now at this point I'm trying to nestle day in and amongst those descenders in the word happy, having a little bit of trouble. D and A were okay. When it came to Y, it overlapped the Y on top of it. I'm wondering if I should trim it down, but the red alphas are foam and quite flexible, so I just have it overlapping it, and I'm okay with that. And I'm pretty picky, I must say. So now I'm looking at my page, and I do know I have some finishing touches. Now what I'm noticing is that there's blue above the photo, there's blue on the right of the page, so I don't have really any visual triangles here. That wasn't what I was thinking about when I was creating this page. I was more or less thinking of filling in the half and half design, each one of those columns. But at the end, I want to add one little visual triangle. So I decide to add that blue underneath the word day. So that's a little puffy heart from Freckled Fawn. It was in the embellishment add-on, and I'm just looking at what I need to add. So I know I need to finish off that tag there over on the right. I want to add something to that little tag hole, and I also wanted to possibly add a few staples. And here's the finished layout. Off camera, I added a brad from my stash to the tag and staples to 3 spots. On the notebook paper scrap that's just on the right side, above the journaling on that vellum, and just on top of the word life. I also trimmed the 2 larger notebook border papers. I just snipped those with my scissors, but that's it. A messy take on the half and half design. The big chunks of paper, the wood grain and the green check, established the design. It is a half and half, only on a smaller canvas, and this gave my layout a certain order. From there, I built some layers, adding texture and interest by tearing and using my border punches. I further added texture by staggering all of the elements, and even the pattern papers, which do pack a punch, that added texture as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, Scrapbooking Quebec, I would be honored and thrilled if you did. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very, very much. Make sure you check out the Mercy Tiara Kits shop, Instagram, and Facebook group. Take care, and I will see you soon on YouTube. Bye-bye.